Hello and welcome to the now weekly Football365 Show, brought to you by World Sportsbook Competition. As ever, there's plenty to get through this week. Winners and losers, we'll be talking about Man United and Bournemouth. Jordan Pickford gets scrutinised to bits in Mailbox. And we look ahead to the big weekend as Aston Villa play against Man City for the first trophy of the season. My guest today, a comedian and Swindon Town fan, Ivo Graham, and editor-in-chief of Football365 itself, Sarah Winterburn. Oh, and keep an eye out for Sarah Winterburn saying some pretty nice stuff about Chelsea after absolutely hammering them this time last week. Football, eh? Bloody hell. Enjoy the show. And we'll start, as ever, with winners and losers. And winners this week, we're going to go with Man United. Now, a home win against Watford normally isn't a big deal, but this is exactly the sort of game they've been dropping points in this season. Sarah, what do you make of it? Why are they winners?
They're winners because they finally signed Bruno Fernandes, I think. And this is clearly a deal that should have been done in the summer.
Is it as easy as that? As simple as that?
I think he's made a massive difference. I think not only in terms of what he's producing, in terms of the creativity, which Man United have been tragically missing all season, but also that sort of sense, I suppose, of someone coming in and probably looking around and going, come on, this is Man United. Pull yourselves together. You know, almost like he's excited to be there, so wait a minute.
Why is no one else?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ivo, have you seen much of United since he's been there?
I've watched the highlights of his already impressive collection of goals and assists. And
What, one goal?
From the penalty spot.
How long was that highlights video?
well, there are lots of different angles, obviously, and sometimes it's sometimes quite confusing about whether you're watching a new goal. But I couldn't agree more. Smile on his face, sense of occasion, a lot of money, not that that's guarantee of anything. It is very early, and they have had quite a lot of big signings in the last few years who have come and sort of burned very brightly and then fizzled out quite quickly.
Yeah.
So I think that's worth being wary of. Man United are still very capable of turning in a horrific performance against anyone.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll do so several more times before the end of the season. I'm obsessed with Brandon Williams. I think he's the future.
Obsessed?
Yes, I think this is very much the Brandon Williams season. And
Not the Liverpool points record. It's the Brandon Williams season.
It's what we'll all be talking about in May.
Yeah.
But did you see Brandon Williams and his
I'm prepared to
and his
compromise.
8 appearances at left back?
I'm prepared to compromise on it being a subplot in the Liverpool season.
But no less.
But it is there.
But Bruno coming in that first 10 minutes of his first game against Wolves, he was already, you could see him pointing where he wants the ball, geeing his teammates up. And they have missed that for, it's not just this season, it's been quite a while.
You can never underestimate the importance of pointing.
There was a lot of it in the highlights package.
Yeah.
Steve McManaman, my favourite pointer, if you're asking.
Yeah, but Jordan Henderson, what a pointer.
Good pointer.
Excellent pointer.
Really good pointer.
Brandon Williams isn't averse
Has he pointed?
to...
You are obsessed, aren't you?
I don't know.
Wild.
Any more questions about...
Brandon Williams. What's his home address? I've got a feeling you might know it.
I don't, but if he's got any sense in him, he'll be staying in the Lowry for as long as foreseeably possible.
Let's talk about Ole for a second, because not only a good week for them on the pitch, but for him personally, it looks like he's getting the backing, certainly in the medium term, from the board.
I think we've known this for a while, haven't we? That they're putting all their eggs in his basket. I'm always talking about eggs in baskets.
You are.
I'm yet to be convinced he's any good at all. At all.
Great.
And yet, they have to back him, don't they?
They have to.
They have to. It was a ridiculous decision to give him the long-term contract when they did. But once you've made that ridiculous decision, I mean, we're all married. Once you've made that ridiculous decision, you kind of got to stick to it, haven't you?
Yeah, just until you just die, bereft of any sort of semblance of spirit and soul. Another team we were going to talk about with winners was going to be Chelsea, but obviously what happened with them against a very good Bayern side means they can no longer be in that category. But quickly, guys,
I'd still count them as winners.
A word of positive, about
I'd still count them as winners. They're looking like the tallest dwarves at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
In a terrible race for Champions League places, they're still in fourth. They were always going to get outclassed by Bayern, and they did remind you just how far behind they are.
But against Spurs?
Excellent against Spurs.
Excellent against Spurs. Ivo, quick word, one word about Chelsea against Spurs.
Excellent.
Gutsy.
Gutsy. Brilliant. Well, that concludes our winners for the week.
I would have gone tall if I'd have gone again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you don't usually get a second bite at the apple in this game.
You really don't. That concludes the winners for the week, but the losers of the week, we have to touch on them, sadly. For me, and I think all of us, because of the script, it's got to be Bournemouth, hasn't it? I mean, Bournemouth, talk about them for a minute. There felt like there was a very clear turning point in their season, or certainly flashpoint in their season. The goal being disallowed for Harry Wilson, and then it goes all the way back to a penalty against them, which is then conceded. So it goes from being 1-1 to being 2-0 down. They've got a tough series of fixtures. It looks very difficult for me.
There must be part of them that after that happens, they just think, should we just not bother now?
Yeah.
That's it, we're done.
Ivo's furrowing his brow at that.
I think I'd be absolutely gutted if I was a Bournemouth fan to watch you saying that. I think that they're going to have to deliver, and they are going to deliver. I do not see Bournemouth going down.
You don't see them going down?
I said this to you earlier, and then you showed me their fixtures between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, well, let's list off the fixtures. Here are the fixtures.
Right.
These aren't the whole. This is not the whole list, but they've got Chelsea, Liverpool.
Beaten them already.
Chelsea, Liverpool, Palace, Wolves, Newcastle, fine. Then United, Spurs, Leicester, Man City. And then they've got, I think, 2 at the end of the season after that. But that seems like a very tough run of fixtures for a team that are really low on confidence.
It's not the run of dreams when you've got the entire footballing world already conspiring against you, sure. But Eddie Howe is going to turn it around. I don't know why I root for Eddie Howe and Bournemouth, given the absolutely vile way in which they poached Matt Ritchie from Swindon in January 2013.
The streets never forget.
The streets never forget, and nobody has his ear more to the ground of the streets of Swindon than I do, Mark. But they are, in my mind, a sort of a forever hopeful Premier League mainstay, and I think they will bounce back.
No.
So, okay then, so are they going to stay up, and why don't you want them to stay up?
I think it's going to be very close. I think they're going to go down. I've said before, I think we're going to see Norwich, Watford and Bournemouth go. I will mourn none of them.
It's brutal.
Yes.
It's cold.
I don't think a team's relegation has ever been mourned less than Huddersfield's relegation last season by neutrals. It was absolutely lovely, some of the things that Huddersfield did in their first season in the Premier League. But I don't think... Can you name anything that happened in their second season last season? There was a manager change at some point.
That we did change managers, yeah.
Absolutely thrilling stuff.
This could get
one fella went, another
quite
one
messy.
came.
I don't know why I've gone in two-footed on Huddersfield there.
I've said nothing about Swindon.
No, there's very little to say, although we are absolutely stonking it in League Two. But
This is a new section where we have both guests attack each other with sharpened studs. I mean, do you want to continue this or?
No, not at
No,
all.
you can move on.
Great.
You can move on.
Okay.
I just think David Wagner was badly treated.
So you do want to keep on this. That concludes our winners and losers for the week. Now time for Mailbox. I mean, where is it? There it is. Okay, good. This piece of mail from this week comes from Hugh in Kent. And this is entitled, England's Pickford Problem. Now, he says, Jordan Pickford had yet another performance that makes you feel uneasy about him being England's number one. With 4 months or so to go until the Euros, this looks to be a bit of a problem. Southgate has a tough choice in either hoping Pickford can get in some sort of form, or he has to possibly unsettle things, bringing in a new number one. If he's going to do this, surely he needs to make this change as soon as possible, starting with the Italy game, ? I'm not an Everton fan, and I get nervous watching him anytime the ball goes near him. Hugh from Kent. Pickford, is he an issue?
I think he's an issue because he plays like a daft puppy.
Okay.
Very excitable.
Yeah.
Loves to engage in every... You kind of... The old adage about you don't notice a very good goalkeeper. There's never a point where you don't notice Jordan Pickford.
Yeah.
He's jumping around, he's doing little silly waves, he's being a daft sod, as my mother would say.
Right.
Will he get replaced before Europe? No way, I don't think.
No chance.
I don't think so. I can't see Gareth Southgate changing him now. I think his opinion would be that he's never let him down for England, which would be fair. Would
that be fair? I think it would be, yeah.
His form for England has been exemplary, some might say. You know, I can't imagine him changing it at this late point. And also, Pickford's far better with his feet than any of the other options, and that's a massive part of what Southgate's trying to do. You know, it's that ball out to the full back all the time, isn't it? And
But is that part of his undoing? Yes, he's great with his feet, but is he overconfident, Ivo? Is that part of the problem? Is it that his defence in front of him don't necessarily have that much confidence in him with the ball at his feet because he thinks he can do everything?
It's very hard to argue with any of the excellent points that Sarah has just made about Jordan Pickford.
They're being national because of the Huddersfield thing?
No, I'm not just because of that. I just found myself instinctively agreeing with every beat of the discourse. But I also like continuity. I like the thought of having the same goalkeeper as in the World Cup. I know that's illogical and sentimental, but as you say, he's not disappointed for England.
Well, there's been no flashpoint, has there? There's been no howler from Pickford.
No, and I don't think it is illogical to go for continuity when it comes to a goalkeeper.
And also,
do you remember the craziness of that World Cup when we took 3 keepers and no one knew who was going to start?
Yeah.
And it had a terrible effect on every one of those 3 keepers.
And all the centre-backs in front of them.
Yeah, because they created this question mark over who was going to play. I can't imagine him changing it. I think what he will do is cap Henderson in one of these friendlies just to get him out there and getting used to it, because he is the de facto number 2, I think, because of Tom Heaton's injury and because Jack Butland is Jack Butland.
Nick Pope?
I think he'd be number 3. I think he's a decent keeper. I can't imagine him as the England keeper, whereas I think Henderson probably is the heir apparent. I don't think we're going to see it quite yet.
Right.
Ben Foster.
Yeah, I mean, I am not...
Can Brandon Williams play?
No, listen, let's just drop this Brandon Williams riff, which I regret. But and let's instead focus on my new...
Your new crush, Ben Foster.
Well, I think he's not my new crush. He's been around as long as time itself.
I think he's a great shout, by the way.
He's in the form of his career, and he's...
I mean, he has retired from international football, so we should probably...
He's a keeper, you can get him out again. He's not got to run any further, has he? It's not like Jamie Vardy coming back, doing his hamstrings or whatever. He's a keeper. If you offer him, a little place in the squad, I think you'd take it.
But no, he's not a long-term, he's 36, he's not a long-term option, whereas Jordan Pickford, there's the hope that under Southgate and also under Carlo Ancelotti, he's got the chance to mature. I'd say it is a problem having an unreliable goalkeeper for England, and it would be lovely to know that the person between the sticks was going to be that person for the next 5 or 10 years.
Isn't it strange though how traditionally we've had good keepers generally, or certainly when I was a kid growing up, we always had good strong keepers and no left winger, and now we've got no keepers and 3 world-class players who can play on the left. It's like the Twilight Zone. I don't know what's happened.
I've never seen the Twilight Zone, but I can easily imagine that being an episode.
A series, I'd say.
Right.
The entire series, just about that one thing. That concludes Mailbox for this week. Thank you to Hugh from Kent for getting in touch. If you want to get in touch with the show, email us at theeditor@football365.com. It's now time for Big Weekend. And actually, technically, it probably is the biggest weekend of the season so far, given it is the first cup final of the season so far. Ivo, Carabao Cup coming up. You'll be there, I imagine, bright and early, waking up, setting the alarm in anticipation of the Carabao Cup final.
Of course. Steaming Sports Direct mug of Carabao in my hand. I've heated it up.
Okay.
Because I'm so excited. Other energy drinks are available, obviously, but why would you bother? The shame is it's going to take more than your recommended daily intake of taurine, although luckily the drink does have that, to make you excited for this final, because it is a stale competition whose future is always being debated. I don't think anyone sees anything other than a pretty thumping Man City win, or even worse, just like a 2-0 win, where they don't even get out of whatever gear they've been in this
20
season.
minutes, then they just
and that's
relax.
it. They've already hammered Villa once this season. Obviously, I love seeing Villa back in the Premier League. There's a lot to like about them. When you've got Jack Grealish, anything could happen, but when you've got the rest of the team, actually it couldn't. And it's going to be maybe like that Man City-Watford final last season, which was so... And even then you thought maybe Watford did stand a chance, but Man City, they don't even care about it. It's a competition they respect so little that they let Phil Foden start occasionally in it. And they've won it however many times on the bounce, and that appears to be now the peak of their sort of regular silverware achievement.
The reason for their existence is to win the Carabao.
When Sheikh Mansour put his hand into his deep, deep pockets back in the day, he dreamed that they would win a competition in February and then crash out of Europe, in this case, forever, and that would be it. So no, I'm not massively excited about it.
Okay, good to know. Well, back next week with what? That's a pretty damning takedown of the tournament there. It's a tournament I actually quite like, because I find it's generally, apart from the winner of the thing every year, it's quite unpredictable. For example, Villa go and beat Leicester in the semi-final. Do you give them any chance
until
whatsoever?
the minute the final starts, it's possibly the greatest competition.
Yeah.
Because it's not like the FA Cup ruins a weekend, doesn't it? You lose a weekend for the FA Cup. Carabao Cup always feels like a little bonus, little midweek cheeky bonus.
Absolutely.
Until you get to that Sunday final. And I mean, the best that, as a neutral you can hope for is that 4 City players are sent off within the first 10 minutes.
What for in this scenario?
In this scenario,
Foden, that'll teach him.
yeah, that would
Really?
teach him.
How dare you?
Edison for full comic value of Claudio Bravo in goal.
Yes.
Who else would we like to see?
I would
Benjamin Mendy?
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to see Benjamin Mendy Instagram storying from the stands within 5 minutes, ideally, just so we get some good content out of it. Ideally in his double denim, of course, which is very much the new City fad.
Well, yeah, so this has come out in the last sort of 48 hours. Man City were caught, I'm going to say they were caught wearing double denim.
It felt like a staged photo op, and who can blame them?
But is that what they're going to wear for the cup? I
For
hope they wear it on the
for
cup
the
final.
actual final.
Because
You'd
remember,
still back them to beat Villa, wouldn't you, dressed in double denim?
and leather shoes, just regular leather shoes.
Just dressed as Bewitched.
But it would be, I mean, when Liverpool did it in the, was it 96 FA Cup final against United?
The beautiful white suits.
When they wore the white suits. It feels like it could be something similar. But it is bringing disrepute upon the tournament. Even more so than the Carabao, the good name of Carabao.
The impenetrably good name of Carabao. But I don't think that... I mean, I don't think I'm being disrespectful to Man City when I say that they haven't got enough fans and they won't sell out their allocation. Again, there was this nice thing on Twitter about an Aston Villa fan went to watch City versus West Ham this week so he could have the record of having been to a City game, which then gets him into the City section of Wembley. There are Villa fans going behind enemy lines to get to this historic occasion, but it's got damp squib written all over it.
Quick prediction, how many are they going to lose
I actually
by?
think Villa are going to sneak it, 2-1.
Okay, moving on to another big game this weekend. I mean, I say big. Is it big? It's the Brighton Palace derby, Eagles versus Seagulls.
Medium-sized weekend.
Is it a derby?
They think it's a derby.
Why? Is it the bird thing? Is it because it's Eagles versus Seagulls? Is it the bird derby?
It
or do they
must
think
be
it's
the bird
actually
derby.
geographically important somehow?
No, it's the birds.
It's the birds.
How many seagulls would it take to fight an eagle?
I don't know. It's not an interesting enough question either to actually answer it.
I thought I'd been rude to Sarah on this show, but it's lovely of you to take some of the flack. And my answer, by the way, is 10. I think it's not only not a real geographical derby, but also, as much as there is to like about both sides, there's not really even a huge amount at stake. I know both could get pulled into the relegation scrap.
Well, I'd say Brighton are pretty much in that scrap at the minute. Wouldn't you? I mean, they're only, 2 points ahead of Bournemouth.
They're doing just
currently
enough, aren't they? They keep drawing. They're the only Premier League team not to have won in 2020. Which is
is that
not
right?
a great record, but then Palace are terrible. So,
Yeah.
well, 1-1 draw, back the 1-1 draw.
You're going 1-1 draw?
Yeah.
And Brighton to remain safe, we'll cover this
Just
earlier.
about all the time.
At Palace, Hodgson looks like he's signing a new deal. Do you see that as being a lack of ambition, or they're happy with a bit of continuity for a few years? Because he does get them in decent positions, doesn't he, end of every season?
I think that the utter financial disaster that would occur should they go down means that they are more than happy to take that sort of steady road, and they will not go down under Roy Hodgson.
No.
And this could go on for another 27 years.
Yeah, I mean, it might do.
It might.
There's every chance. Is it a case, though, of they have to retain the likes of Zaha to give themselves a chance, or do you
Well, you
see
say
it
the
as-
likes of Zaha, there
Well,
is
I mean,
just
Will
Zaha.
Yeah. Well, who else is there? Who else is
Van
there?
Aanholt.
Van Aanholt's a good shout. They have got some. They've always been a team with a couple of star players, I think. But Zaha is a crucial one, and how they redistribute that money they'll get for him. Whether
If
it be
they
50,
do,
60,
I mean, they
70
didn't
mil.
with the Aaron Wan-Bissaka money.
No.
That just went in someone's pocket.
I still believe...
Legal disclaimer, it didn't go in anyone's pocket.
Get that in there.
I actually think it might be less than 10 seagulls, actually. I think, because they're very vicious. I think maybe
It was
five,
more the
maybe
match
five.
result than the Seagulls versus Eagles.
A
Literally,
solid draw.
a solid draw. 1-1.
1-1.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. I'm happy with that. That's it for Big Weekend, and that's it for the show this week as well. Thank you to Ivo Graham, Sarah Winterburn. We're all off to enjoy a lovely large glass of Carabao.